So in the brand new update, Tycoon did make a lot of changes to both helicopters, planes and ground vehicles. However, today's video is fully gonna be focused on the helis because they have received quite a lot of balance changes in terms of their damages. So let's go ahead and actually check them out. So firstly, starting with the MI24 Hind, which apparently they reworked their explosive machine guns damage and they decreased their rocket launchers damage, which essentially are just the standard rockets, which are the free fire. So firstly, taking a look at these cannons, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I don't really notice too much of a difference. I don't think this damage was reworked too much. Like, it's still really OP against tanks and ground vehicles, and it seems to be having a similar performance against air vehicles too. So to be totally real with you, I don't think this is true at all. However, the difference which I can definitely notice is going to be in its rockets, because these things are no longer going to be able to absolutely shred you. They'll still do really good damage. They'll be able to do around 5% per hit to both the Abrams X and the MGS, but they won't really be quite enough to brutalize two tanks like they used to, because that was just way too insane. Now the next change which was made is that the Apache Longbow has gotten a rework towards its guided rockets damage, and what that basically is are the lock-on missiles. So essentially the first change which they made is that they slightly decreased the damage that the anti-tank missiles are going to be doing against tanks. As you guys can currently see, it's doing slightly less than what it was doing before. I believe it's going to be taking you around 12 to 13 missiles to actually be able to kill a Abrams X here, and keep in mind that APS also exists. Now in terms of the damage against air vehicles, the Longbow will be able to still absolutely brutalize every helicopter. However, I believe its damage against planes has also been nerfed even more. So the Longbow is already not very good against planes. I believe it's gonna be even worse against them compared to what it already was. But I do believe this is a pretty balanced change, because it actually makes the Longbow's potential slightly worse in terms of damage, but it also gives it a proper weak spot since it has so many things that it's really good at. So I do think overall this is a pretty good change. Now the next change was actually made to the MI28 Havoc, and I have to say these changes are pretty alright. There's nothing really special about them, but now if you're gonna be using your missiles against tanks specifically, you'll be able to do roughly around 50% of damage to the Abrams X, which, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you, that isn't too good at all, but it's not too bad either, so it's just okay in a sense. Now if we take a look at the air missiles, they will be able to most of the time get really powerful helicopters extremely low, and the same results can also be semi-seen against the planes. So essentially the MI28 is kind of just like a jack of all trades but a master of none once again. The next vehicle which has received a lot of changes was the KA52 Alligator, because unfortunately enough, this thing was pretty severely nerfed. I remember it was pretty gimmicky before, but now it only does 13 damage per hit against tanks, so you'll still be able to kill the tanks semi-comfortably, but its damage is definitely not going to be as insane as what it was before on the cannon. Now if we also take a look at its overall damage of the rockets, they'll be able to do around 5% to an Abrams X, and all of them should on average be able to kill it most of the time, which I think is definitely pretty good performance, but I do know that these rockets have also definitely been nerfed. Now another vehicle which was buffed that actually caught me by surprise is the overall missile damage of the AH64 Apache against tanks, because now if you actually shoot an Abrams X or a TO-55, which both have the same health right here, as you guys can see, you'll be able to get them to around half health, which is definitely around the performance of the MI28, if not even better. Now the next vehicle which was also changed is going to be the MI24 Superhind, and I have to say this thing is an absolute unit now, because over 8 of its missiles will basically on average be able to destroy almost every single tank in the game, and right here it was able to leave a maxed out TO-55 at only 4% health, which is pretty insane. Now its performance against helicopters and planes is also extraordinarily good, because once again you'll be able to destroy most of them in around 5 to 6 shots, which is just outstanding performance overall. I think the MI24 Superhind is definitely the best heli in the game. But anyway, for the time being, those were all the changes which were actually made to the helicopters in this update. Do let me know in the comment section down below what you guys actually think about these, but also I would like to hear which vehicle class should I also review next. Should it be the ground vehicles, should it be the boats, or should it be the planes, because there's just so much more to cover in terms of balance changes.